Greetings. Let's dive into the difference between session authentication and token authentication. Meet Emma. She's preparing for her final exam and needs to borrow a book from the library. But when Emma arrives, she sees a long queue. Everyone has to wait for the librarian to find their records before they can check out a book. This process takes forever, and Emma feels frustrated. She calls her friend Joshua and asks, "How will I prepare for my exam with such a long wait?" Joshua replies, "Don't worry, Emma. Go to the JWT library instead. There, you can borrow a book instantly without any waiting." Emma heads over to the JWT library and notices there's no queue at all. They give her a badge that stores all her information. Now, whenever Emma wants to borrow a book, all she has to do is swipe her badge. The system reads her information and immediately approves her request. Thanks to the JWT library, Emma gets her book quickly and has plenty of time to study. She ends up passing her exam with flying colors. So what's the difference between these two libraries? In the Session Authentication library, every time someone wants to borrow a book, they have to ask the librarian, who then looks up their records. This process is slow and cumbersome, especially as the number of users grows. In contrast, at the JWT library, Emma is given a badge that contains all the information needed to borrow books. She doesn't need to wait or ask anyone. She just swipes her card, and the system instantly validates her credentials and processes her request. This illustrates the key difference between session-based authentication and token-based authentication. In session-based authentication, when a user logs in, the server generates a session ID, stores it in memory or cache, and uses it to identify the user by checking the database. With each new request, the server checks the session ID storage to verify the user's identity before returning a response. As the number of active users grows, this can put a strain on the server. In token-based authentication, the user sends a login request, and the server authenticates the user, generates a token, and sends it back to the client. The server does not need to store this token. For each subsequent request, the user sends the token back to the server, which reads the token and verifies its authenticity without needing to store user session data. This token contains all the necessary user information, reducing server load and speeding up the authentication process. So in session-based authentication, user information is stored on the server, often in memory or cache, which can become overwhelmed as more users log in. However, in token-based authentication, like JWT, all necessary user information is embedded within the token itself. This reduces the server's workload and speeds up the authentication process. So, which one is better? For small applications, session-based authentication may work just fine. But for larger, more dynamic applications, JWT Token-Based Authentication is the better choice. It's faster, more scalable, and less demanding on the server. If you found this explanation helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tech insights.